Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey.
Science fiction tropes. There's a lot of them, as there are with anything in pop culture. You could be talking about movies, TV, even books, music to a large degree. Yeah, for sure. But tropes exist, man, like they're everywhere. And sometimes you can easily point them out. Sometimes it's sort of like right in your peripheral. And you won't really know they're there until at one point you see something that reminds you of a previous episode or another song, and you're like, oh my god, I have heard that guitar solo before, and it's the same band, and man, they keep playing the same thing. Which is a trope, right? It's like, well, this fits here, let's just put it here. And in this movie, he has to chase the girl to the airport. He has to, you know what I mean? It's like the rom-com stuff. It's like, again, tropes are everywhere, man. And it's obviously true in science fiction. As we said, it's there for everything basically in geek culture. Science fiction has its tropes. A lot of it, thanks to Star Trek, I would think is possibly the top offender of that. Star Wars is maybe a close two. There's, Buck Rogers, and there's a lot of other stuff that's come through the years. Some great science fiction out there, kids. Not suggesting there's only two that you can choose from. There's a lot of great science fiction out there for you to take a look at and to follow and be a fan of. But look, even as fans, we have to admit there's tropes, and those tropes are revealed, like peeling back the bandage in Galaxy Quest. This film, I had not seen it in a very long time. I actually forgotten how entertained I am by this film, and we're going to get into that here today, kids. Galaxy Quest is a 1999 American science fiction comedy film directed by Dean Parasot and written by David Howard and Robert Gordon. It's a parody of and homage to science fiction films and series, especially Star Trek and its fandom. The film depicts the cast of a fictional cult TV series, Galaxy Quest, who are drawn into a real interstellar conflict by actual aliens who think the series was an accurate documentary. That there is enough to get me to the table, ladies and gentlemen. It's directed, as we said, by Dean Parasot, stars Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, and an assorted cast of characters. The budget was $45 million for this movie. It made some bank at the box office. It earned almost $91 million. Distributed by DreamWorks Pictures, released on December 25th, 1999. Yes, we just recently celebrated the anniversary of this film. Runs for 102 minutes. 1999, as we said, is the year of the release, and that, kids, is essentially your lowdown for Galaxy Quest. So there's a whole lot more to it than that, obviously. Phil, you mentioned this to me in passing, and I can't remember now for the life of me what episode we were doing that this came up, and maybe you recall, because right now, off the top of my head, I can't remember. But how long has it been since you've seen this film? And is this like a personal favorite for you, Galaxy Quest?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like if you are a part of any kind of like nerd fandom, you can appreciate what Galaxy Quest is. There's so much like wink, wink, and nudge humor to fandom in so many ways. Even if you're not considered a Trekkie, if you're like any kind of sci-fi fan, I think you can appreciate it. But especially if you enjoy Star Trek, there's so much to enjoy about this movie. Um, I mean, just Tim Allen giving his best attempt at Shatner, it, it's worth the price of admission.
He's extremely likable in this film, dude. Honestly, this might be my favorite Tim Allen performance in a film, and I'm even counting the Toy Story stuff. I mean, I thought he was really good in this film, dude.
Yeah, I there are, of course, like Home Improvement and some of the like staple Tim Allen stuff, of course, I enjoy, but I do find this is one of the things that I've enjoyed him in the most. Um, because he's just he's so likable even in the scenes where you're supposed to take him as like a narcissistic jerk. Uh, but there's just something so charming and appealing about him. And I think that sums up Shatner in so many ways. Like Shatner, in a lot of ways, is the butt of many jokes, but I mean, he's a legend. He's an icon, and I mean, there's so many things that I appreciate about Shatner. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I can understand why people may or may not like him.
And you know what? I'm with you. And also, when it comes to actors taking themselves much too seriously, Shatner's never done that. I feel like he's never fallen for his own shtick. And I don't know this. How do I know? He could be an egomaniacal jerk behind the scenes. Who knows? I know that the cast of Star Trek wasn't happy with him over the years for various different reasons. Maybe that was one of them. I have no idea. But at least appearance wise, Phil, it looks as though he just doesn't take any of this very seriously. He has fun. He's willing to poke fun at himself. He's done it for years, which, if you want to make friends and make fans and earn respect, the minute you start poking fun at yourself, dude, it feels like you're turning the corner, and it seems as though people will tend to appreciate you a heck of a lot more than they ever did before. I mean, I kind of have always gotten that vibe with Shatner.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, he's one of the most influential actors and characters possibly in all of Hollywood. I mean, because just think about what would life be without Shatner playing Captain Kirk. I mean, you wouldn't have this movie. You wouldn't have things like Zap Brannigan, who is clearly an homage of him. I mean, you wouldn't have so many great things that we enjoy without him.
Very true. Very true. Um, yeah, I'm sitting here thinking of other examples like Tom Arnold. Back in the day, he was a nobody, right? That married Roseanne Barr, and they had this big, very public relationship, and it was like, and then I heard his, I heard him in interviews, and I'm like, huh, this is not at all what I expected, right? Like he just very self-deprecating and genuinely funny. And I thought that True Lies was a great example. Got to do True Lies at some point. Phil, love that movie.
Very, very funny in True Lies.
Very funny in True Lies. Oh my god, I think we are our next project. But like, and like, I think that's why he earned fans and he made fans, was that people are like, oh, he's not such. He doesn't think he's all that after all. The first time The Rock was on SNL, the first time, and he wasn't a proven commodity as a Hollywood guy. I think at that point he had movies that were tanking. I think Scorpion King was a thing, and it was, much debate on whether or not it was any good. And he immediately poked fun at himself through the entire episode. He did the monkey boy character. I forget what they called him, and he became a complete clown and did anything asked of him and had the best time doing it. And I thought, man, you're earning so many points on this show tonight with people who are not wrestling fans. You have no idea. I mean, it's again, that's what Shatner is to me. He just doesn't take any of this stuff very seriously. What do you think about Tim? By the way, let's just jump to the cast. What do you think about Tim Allen in this role? Is he the right choice for this character? Because I don't know who else you would get to do this that would maybe do it quite as well as he did.
I think he nailed everything that's likable about Shatner. Um, I mean, down to the mannerisms, like the vocal inflections. I mean, there's a point where he sounds exactly like Shatner, and it makes me laugh every time I see it. Oh, when he's on the bridge of the ship, and he's like, "All right, well, just turn this thing around, take us home, and you can head back to your home planet." And they're like, "Oh, we can." He's like, "Why not? You got all these things going for you there, yeah." And it's like, it just sounds like such a thing that Shatner would really say in real life. It's so funny every time I see it.
Oh,
I think he's great. I think he nails so much here. I think he nails the low moments for the character. He nails the high points and the triumphant moments. Um, I think he's fantastic in this. I don't think this movie would be nearly as good without him.
and that moment that you're speaking about is the moment they find out that these people no longer have a planet. They have no planet to go back to. And it's like that's when it gets very serious for them because they had no idea. I mean, the mark of a good comedy, the mark of a great comedy, in my opinion, has always been how much heart is there to this. I mean, I've seen plenty of comedies over the years that have fallen flat and didn't make a dime, and people hated it. Uh, everybody's tastes different, right? But like it falls flat because there's no heart. You can't have an hour and a half of not jokes. There has to be some heart to it. And dude, this movie will hit you in places where you don't see it coming. And it's not like very intense. It's not like what a Marvel movie would do to you. But there are moments of this film, and dude, now that you look back on it, honest to goodness, I think you could fit this into the MCU. I think it would fit. I mean, it has that balance of humor. It has the balance of heart. It has the balance of action. I mean, dude, the more I think about it, this kind of feels like an MCU property.
It definitely has some of the. It definitely has a lot of fourth wall breaking that we enjoy from some of the MCU movies. There's definitely a lot of looking in the camera and winking at fans that I think a lot of us enjoy. Um, but yeah, I think that is why this movie is so endearing. I think that's why it's a cult classic.
Yeah, I agree. It's got that little something extra. A lot of these other movies perhaps don't have. Of course, Tim Allen's character is the captain, Galaxy Quest, Jason Nesmith, not to be confused with Michael Nesmith from the Monkees. I'm just throwing it out there. Sigourney Weaver as Gwen DeMarco, who also played Lieutenant Tawny Madison. And we should note that Jason Nesmith, Tim Allen's character, played Commander Peter Quincy Taggart, which is absolutely perfect. James Tiberius Kirk, right? It's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Sigourney Weaver is Gwen DeMarco, who played Tawny Madison, the ship's communications officer. And the only officer, her shtick, Phil, is that she talks to the computer and repeats what the computer says to the rest of the crew. Sigourney Weaver can do anything she wants and be fantastic. And she's so good in this. Talk about Sigourney Weaver in this role and how great she is here.
I think she was perfect casting because I think there's like a nod inside of a nod that everybody knows that she is really badass based off of her being in the Alien franchise. But then also the fact that she's playing like an homage to I guess Uhura and like all of the self-referential humor in it is just so funny. Um, her in several points in the actual ship going like, why is this in the ship? This doesn't make any sense. And there's so many things like that we as fans look at like, yeah, that never did make any sense. It's so funny. Like the point where they're in the bottom of the ship and they have to get to manually over the to manually close the to shut down the bomb or whatever. And they have to go through they have to go through that room with all of the smashing things, and she's just like, "Why is this in the ship? This doesn't make any sense." And he's like, "We have to do it because it's in the ship." And he's like, "No, it doesn't make sense." It's so funny.
Yeah, because they built the ship to scale and took the exact specs of what they saw on the TV show. So of course they added that part in there, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. No, I think she's great. I think she's great as a love interest and as a comedic character as well. I think she nails a lot of the humor here. She was perfect.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. And they have shall we say her upper body exposed fairly quickly in this film, and it happens a few different times. By the time that you can see her bra at this point by the end of the film, which I'm sure is also a nod to a lot of other tropes as we started the show off with the word
Yeah.
tropes in science fiction. I mean, there's that infamous scene with Sigourney Weaver in the chair in Ghostbusters where for some weird reason she chose not to have a bra underneath that shirt. I'll never understand why. But like as a kid, I'm watching the Ghostbusters and there it is. And you're like, oh my God, she's wow. And as a kid, holy crap, right? But like that's kind of followed her around for years is her, you know, again, her upper body, I would say very politely. So
Yeah, I think that the reference to that are funny in themselves. I think because in the actual clips from the show inside of the movie of Galaxy Quest, she has like her uniform zipped up far enough where you can see some cleavage. Which why is that? Why is that a thing? And of course,
Yeah.
Like her in real life, she has her jacket zipped all the way up. But by the end, because all of the actors become more and more like their characters by the end of the movie, and of course, by the end of the movie, she has to have cleavage showing.
Yeah, and it's, if you're a comic book fan going back to the 90s, then you know about the Image era. I mean, Rob Liefeld and Mark Silvestri, and especially Jim Lee and who Michael Turner, obviously Michael Turner, a lot of Michael Turner.
Yeah,
Uh, cleavage, cleavage, cleavage everywhere. I mean, it's
yeah,
we could sit here and argue that it's inappropriate and whatnot, but like Sigourney Weaver is an accomplished actress at this point in her career. She could have very easily said, "I'm not doing that." But maybe
yeah.
there again, this is another example of an actor willing to poke fun at themselves to some degree, perhaps.
Yeah, I think she was in on the joke. There's so many there's so many things with her, not just that are like referential to like aliens or Star Trek, but just stuff like her at the conventions at the beginning of the movie, and she takes that one picture with all of the fans dressed exactly like her and they're doing the pose. And if you've been to conventions, you've seen that so many times. It's so funny to see in a movie.
I mean, we have to give a shout out to the convention scenes because they absolutely got it right. I've never been to a Trek or Star Wars convention, but I've been to my share of comic book conventions, and there's
Yeah,
always some excellent cosplay. Like I remember,
yeah,
there's usually a guy at Heroes Con in Charlotte who does Jack Sparrow, and he's fantastic. Looks just like Johnny Depp. And I don't know where he travels in from, but man, he's worth it just to get a little bit of a video with him because he's got the voice, he's perfect, he's got the swagger, perfect. And then there's, you know, people who shouldn't be cosplaying, uh, but they they love the books, they love the culture. So who am I to judge? I don't care. But like, hey man, to each his own. But no, they really nailed that in this movie, didn't they?
yeah. But again, I think that's a part of why a lot of fans enjoy it so much because they made fans a part of the experience of the movie. I mean, they literally made fans one of the heroes of the movie.
Mm.
Um, it, I mean, a lot of the scenes in the convention feel so genuine. Um, a lot of the kind of questions people will ask at conventions, at like signings and those kind of panels, all of that stuff is so perfectly written because it's exactly what happens at conventions. And a lot of it is harmless, but that's just how people interact there. And I think if you have never been to conventions or you don't have friends that are fans, you're looking at it from afar like these guys are just like complete weirdos. And um, I feel like the movie did a good job of like illustrating that fans are just normal people. They're just like, fanatical about this like sci-fi thing that most people don't care about and they see as childish.
Well, you're as much of a nerd as I am. You develop connections to a lot of this material, like depending on what it is, and sometimes it's extremely deep connections and that's why. And I'll defend some of the more radical side of fandom for just a second. Um, that is why you get such a backlash from people who are saying insane things like "You've ruined my childhood," which I completely disagree with. No one took away your original material. You can still love your movie. You can still love your cartoon or your TV show. No one took that away from you. But I can kind of see where they're coming from because it's like, here comes the hot shot. Here comes the next big thing. Doesn't give a crap about the ethos or the mythos, the mythology of the story. Doesn't care about it. Just want to get a payday, and they trash the entire universe and do their own thing. I can understand where the frustration comes from. It's too much, but I can relate. I can relate to the connection of you don't understand why I love this and you're laughing at me. You're mocking me, which that's the worst part of it for me, Phil, is like, don't mock me. Don't poke fun at me. If you don't understand it, that's fine. Go play in someone else's sandbox. Go do an original project. Don't mess in this universe. But
Yeah.
do people take it too far? Obviously, and we have distanced ourselves from those people. I think. Hopefully, we've tried to anyway here. So
Yeah, I don't ever feel like this movie was mocking fans. I do think that it mocks certain kinds of fans, but it never felt like we were the butt of the jokes here as fans. It felt like we were in on the joke.
hmm. And I think this is where the idea to do this 6M came from was Shatner's bit on SNL when he was at that convention and that skit, and they're all applauding me. He's like, "Get a life, people, will you? It was just a TV show. It doesn't mean anything." I mean, I dare say he didn't make a lot of friends on that appearance in the Star Trek universe, but I mean, at some point, sometimes it needs to be said, I would submit, but, I think I'm deep enough in fandom to appreciate how much it hurts when somebody rips on you, but I'm not so deep that I can't stand back and say, "Okay, we're getting a little childish with this." So,
Yeah.
um, the great Alan Rickman. I can't give this guy enough of an introduction because I won't do him justice. I don't think I can. As Alexander Dane, who plays Dr. Lazarus, the ship's science officer and member of the Mokhtar, an alien species known for their superintelligence and psionic powers. And to that I say, by Grabthar's hammer, by the sons of Warvan, you shall be avenged. At this point, he hates the line. Dude, when Alan Rickman passed away, it took away any possibility for a sequel. And we can get into this later, but um, I don't know what more I can add to what this guy accomplished. This guy was one of the greatest of all time. Still a shame he's no longer with us. Dude, Alan Rickman brings something very different to this cast that no one else brings, and you can see it from a mile away. Talk to me about Alan Rickman in this role and how awesome he is.
Yeah, Alan Rickman is just brilliant. We don't get a chance to see him do a lot of comedy. And we've gotten to see him do basically everything throughout his career. He did some serious acting. He did some hammy villain work in one of the greatest action franchises of all time in Die Hard. We got to see him like do musicals. We've gotten to see him do everything, and he did all of it extremely well. Um, and I think his comedic timing in this movie was just tremendous. There's so many little things that he does that are just so funny. Um, Him at the beginning of the movie trying to sneak out of the room in the most dramatic way possible in like a trench coat and a hat. And it's like even your disguise is just like super dramatic. It's so funny. Um, yeah, he just the way he delivers the line when they're in front of that tech store and they're like nudging him to do the line, and he's just like, "By Grabthar's hammer, what a savings!"
Yeah. Oh,
You could just like, and I mean, even when he's doing comedic stuff, like you could just see just how great of an actor he is, because it's just like you could just feel the pain in his voice every time he had to say the line. It's just so funny, man. Or the scene where he's signing autographs and everybody that walks up is saying the line, and he's like trying to cut them off as quick as possible. Um, yeah, he's incredible in this. And the scenes where he actually has to do some real acting, and like in the death scene later in the movie, he's great in it. When he has to do the scheme where he's trying to do like hammy acting, uh, with Nesmith to trick the villains, it's also great. Yeah, he's amazing in this.
yeah, he's so good, dude. There's just nothing. I've never seen anything with him that I didn't like. And I'm not a huge Harry Potter guy. I never really have been, to be honest. But I've seen his work in those films, and he's fantastic. And he does have comic timing for sure. I mean, he did. Uh, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. He had
Yeah.
over the, if you say over the top, hammy, hammered up villain. And he also did Dogma. His timing in Dogma is impeccable. I mean, really good. I could have, honest to God, I think in another lifetime, Alan Rickman's working. If he's not in Monty Python, he's with them in a film in some capacity, because I just think he has that very deadpan. I'll crack you up with a straight face, and I'll never break a smile. I mean, to your point, I mean he's the Doctor Spock character of this film.
Yeah.
Um, he's great, and dude, he has that headpiece on during the entire film.
Yes. Yeah, I think just his commitment to it. Um, and I think that if you take this as like a microcosm of what made Shatner so likable, you can see in this what made Leonard Nimoy a legend as well. because it was just like, for whatever you can take away from him and everything else he's done with his career, you've never seen him phone it in. He always brings commitment, and I feel like that is the message for most of this movie. Like, I don't care how much I think this is stupid. Um, when someone says the show has to go on, show must go on. I'm going to
Yeah.
perform.
Yeah.
Um, and so, and even just like his relationship to Shatner and the way that they play off of it in this movie is just so good. Um, but again, those are like inside basketball things or of what you may or may not know about Leonard Nimoy. Um, and I, of course, have come to appreciate that part of this a lot more because Leonard Nimoy is no longer here. Um, I just think it's such a great tribute to the original cast of Star Trek. I don't know how they feel about it, but I think it's just such a great tribute to them.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, it's funny you mention that because let's see, during the years, of course, the cast of Trek have been asked. Um, Patrick Stewart has a great a great quote. He says that Jonathan Frakes had called him and said, "You have to watch this movie. Watch it on a Saturday night in a full theater." Patrick Stewart says he did that. He said it was brilliant. No one laughed out louder or longer in the cinema than I did. But the idea of the ship was saved, and all of our heroes in that movie were saved simply by the fact that there were fans who did understand the scientific principles on which the ship worked was absolutely wonderful. And it was both funny and also touching in that it paid tribute to the dedication of these fans. He summed it up with that review right there. It's good stuff.
Yeah,
Um, Shatner says, I thought it was very funny, and I thought the audience that they portrayed was totally real. The actors that they were pretending to be were totally unrecognizable. Certainly, I don't know what, yeah, certainly, I don't
I
know
love
what,
Shatner.
isn't that great? Certainly, I don't know what Tim Allen was doing. He seemed to be the head of a group of actors, and for the life of me, I was trying to understand who he was imitating. The only one I recognized was the girl playing Nichelle Nichols. And, William Shatner, tongue and firmly planted in cheek. So, it's good stuff. Will Wheaton, of course, Wesley Crusher. I love Galaxy Quest. I thought it was brilliant satire, not only of Trek, but of fandom in general. The only thing I wish they'd done was cast me in it and have me play a freaky fanboy who keeps screaming at the actor who played the kid about how awful it was that there was a kid on the spaceship. That would have been great.
Yeah,
And then George Takei, of course, Mr. Sulu. I think it's a chillingly realistic documentary. The details in it, I recognize every one of them. It is a powerful piece of documentary filmmaking, and I do believe that when we get kidnapped by aliens, it's going to be the genuine, true Star Trek fans who will save the day. So yeah, he loved it.
yeah,
Um, and again, I'm with you. I don't think there's anything in this film that's offending anybody. If there's anybody offended by this film, get over yourselves, because that's not what this is at all.
yeah. Yeah. And when you hear those kind of things and hear that, people that have famously been in Star Trek films and franchises enjoyed it, I think that is again one of the great things about this movie that it's something that brought the entire community together and fans and the cast can enjoy it together. I
Mhm.
absolutely love that about it. Um, but yeah, it's just such a I just cannot say enough how it's just such a great tribute to um, the people behind these things. I mean, just the fact that Shatner would have that kind of reaction to it is so funny.
So great, so great. And again, he's messing with you, and he's doing it straight face because he's good at it. I mean, he's a classic. Um, so good. Tony Shalhoub as Fred Kwan, who played Tech Sergeant Chen. I mean, I ran into two different things just on the names.
Yeah, I just think like this guy. I mean, he's had an entire career outside this movie. I mean, this is Monk on the USA series and all the other comedic stuff he's done since then, and he's just so funny in this movie. Uh, and I mean, even his even his self-referential stuff to Star Trek that he does is just so funny in this movie. And I mean, this is a incredible cast. If I haven't said that already, like all of the guys that are in this thing are and women, just great casting.
Oh, 100%. And Tony Shalhoub is the Scotty. And dude, did it throw you off just the least little bit of how incredibly chill he is through this whole film? It never it never phased him. He was on a ship. It's almost like the character was like on drugs. And like we never got even tipped off to that possibility, which would have made a lot more sense if this guy's been on pills for a long time. But like we never get that. But dude, he's not phased by anything that happens to him at all.
Yeah, his just kind of chuckle at everything is really funny. It's just like,
Yeah. I mean, they get, beamed up or whatever, and like he's not phased at that by that in the slightest. It not even occur to him. It doesn't even carry he's on a spaceship, which is nuts.
yeah. And that is funny that he is kind of like an amalgam of the Scotty character and Zulu. Um, and I don't know, his responses are just so funny, man. He's just so nonchalant about everything. Like, I guess, like even like the whole weird love story they tell with him, he's just kind of along for the ride, just like, oh, well, I guess that happened.
Right. Yeah, he's great. And I was a big fan of Monk when the series first came out. I think I watched the first 2, 3 seasons, whatever it was. But yeah, he's very good. Got his start in Wings, obviously. Um, God, I haven't seen Wings in years. It's been a long, long time. But yeah, he's a funny guy, man.
Tom Clark 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark 6M podcast sent you.
Let's see. Rounding out the primary cast of the Galaxy Quest show within the movie, I guess, is Daryl Mitchell, who plays Tommy Weber, who played Lieutenant Laredo. And that bit was played by Corbin Blue as the child during the original TV series. Apparently, this guy's been making his living off the convention circuit ever since, you would assume. Um, Daryl Mitchell, who has gone on to do other things since this movie has happened. NCIS New Orleans. He was in the John Larroquette show. Let's see, he's done other things as well. I mean, good actor. Is this a throwaway role? I don't know. I thought he was really good in it. I don't think there's anything amiss here, but and this is nothing to his performance, but I kind of feel like this role just kind of sits there for me, and like it's fine, but I don't know if it was given enough oomph or enough spice. Maybe is the word. What did you think about the character of Lieutenant Laredo, also known as Tommy Weber? There's a lot of names here. What did you think about the character here? Did you think that the character had enough depth that could he have used more? Is it just enough? What do you think?
Um, I really like the idea of him being like the crusher of the cast and
Mm.
them doing the nod to having a young cast member and him being an adult and people still trying to basically treating him like he was a kid. I think that was very funny throughout most of the movie. And we've seen that a few times. We've seen that in the Power Rangers franchise when they had the kid in the Turbo season, and you see him later, and he's an adult, and it's like this is weird. And he's just like cursing and all these other things. And it's like, no, but you're a kid character, and he's just kind of like annoyed with the whole thing. Like you could tell he's just fed up with the whole thing. And I think he did a great job with that throughout the movie. I think him having to do the catchphrase later is hilarious, and him being the most annoyed with a lot of stuff going on is funny too. I think he's great in this. Of course I don't think it's as memorable as some of the other guys, but I feel like his role is supposed to be nondescript like that
Yeah.
in some ways, but I think he did great with everything he was supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I thought he was fine. For me, I don't know, the character seemed like it maybe needed something else, but I do like the idea. And again, we're talking about tropes. The trope of the child actor in the '80s, where it's like he grows up, and it's maybe a nod to that also, to the Will Wheaton character, of course, Wesley Crusher. I mean, it's a couple of different things at play here. I do like he got off some good one-liners here. I like that he is uh, the checkoff of the crew because he's the one steering the ship, right? Do I have that right, or is it Mr. Sulu? He's the Sulu of the ship.
Yeah, technically he's the Zulu of the ship, but
Hmm.
he's kind of like an amalgamation of a few characters, just like Chin is. He's because you're right. He does steer the ship like Zulu, but he's still like the child character, like Wesley Crusher.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I get all the tribute they're trying to do with him. There's so much stuff that they mind in here that I think is funny. Like even when he's confused about like steering the ship, and the first time he takes the ship out of the space station is hilarious. I
It's
um
like it's like the scene of Men in Black where he's pulling the metal chair across the floor and it screeches the entire time. The sound effect is great in here.
yeah.
It's good stuff. And honestly, like the whole time that, and look, man, let's call it for what it is. The aliens kind of make this story click. I mean, they're the ones that they show up. They show up to Nesmith's door. They think that he's the actual captain. They think he's actually Captain Quincy Taggart. Um, and we can run down this cast really quick here. The Thermians, led by Enrico Colantoni, uh, as Mathazar, which is a great name. He looks fantastic. This guy's done other stuff over the years too. He was in Just Shoot Me. He was in Veronica Mars. He's done a lot of other things. Patrick Breen as Quillick. Also, Macy Pyle as Lalaria, I think, who is Fred's love interest. And dude, you know her from her expression, her eyebrows, because like she's very expressive with her face. Dude, she smiles through this whole film.
Yeah, she has that unsettling smile for the entire movie, and it's very funny. Just her in the background smiling in some of the scenes. It's so funny. Some of the non-verbal humor in this movie is just so funny, especially with the aliens. Mathazar's mannerisms and expressions, the way he moves and everything is just so funny. Um, when in the scene where everything is blowing up and they're losing, and uh, Tim Allen's character asks him to activate the Omega, whatever it's called. And he like immediately hops up out of like he just like woke up out of his sleep. It's so funny. Every time I see it, it's so funny. The way he hops up is so funny, man. Yeah, I love Mathesar in this movie.
He's so good, and without being told what's going on, you can kind of get what's going on. Like it's like the way they're talking. Like this is not their actual form. They're actually tentacle, look like octopus. All of them do. Their species do. But like the fact that their grasp of English is not great because they've got translators, but it's still like the cadence is it's very long and drawn out, which is hilarious. I mean, there's little touches like that work here as well. Um, Jed Reeves is Teb. If you saw the guy in the movie, you've seen the guy in real life. There's not a lot of difference here. Justin Long, this is his first film, his debut, and everything Justin Long's ever been in, you're like, oh, that's Justin Long. That's him. He just does. The guy doesn't age. Doesn't look like. This is also Rainn Wilson's film debut. He was Lank, or Lonk, perhaps. Can't remember now for whatever reason. I don't even know if they called him by name, but he's one of the aliens as well. Let's see. There's a few other characters here. Um, see, Justin Long is Brandon. Jeremy Howard plays his friend Kyle. Um, Jonathan Fayers, Hollister, one of his other friends. But that pretty much rounds out the cast. The voice of the computer is Joe Frank, which I don't know, Joe Frank. I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't like an incredibly famous voice um, here in this film for whatever reason. There just wasn't. Um, oh, dude, we haven't mentioned Robin Sachs as Rothar Saris, who's. I mean, look, they did what they could do with the prosthetics and everything. I thought he looked fine. I didn't bump into that at all. I actually thought it was quite good. Um, What do you think of this cast overall? Are there any? Would you have made any changes to any of this cast, or is everybody pretty much good here?
No, everybody's great. I think that everybody does such a great job in their small roles, or in the prominent roles that they're in. Uh, I think all of the alien characters are just so fun and entertaining. Um, I think the I am just now learning today that Corbin Blue is the younger Tommy Laredo in this movie. I did not even realize that. I don't know if you know who Corbin Blue is, but he's like a big Disney Channel star. Like he was the kid that was in High School Musical. He's in a Jump Rope movie. Like he's like for an entire generation of kids, they know who Corbin Blue is for something completely different.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, Sam Rockwell is also underrated in this. He's so funny as kind of like the grounded character or the kind of like the eyes for fans in this movie. Um, and he's basically a red shirt. And I
Right.
love that he knows he's a red shirt in the scene where they go down to the planet, and he's like, "I'm the one that's gonna die," because that's basically what he's playing. He's playing a nondescript red shirt, and so that makes it even funnier in the earlier scenes in the convention where he wants to sit with them and sign autographs.
Oh yeah, yeah, dude. I ran down the entire cast and left out Rockwell. I mean, I fell asleep on that one. And you don't get his last name till the end, which is the
No,
best.
he's just Guy.
Till you find out it's Guy Fleegman.
Yeah,
Which there you go,
it's just Guy.
this
Just
guy.
funny.
Yeah, God, how do you forget Sam Rockwell? Jeez, talk about a Marvel film. I mean, we've got Justin Hammer right here, kids. So that's all you need. Yeah, he's great in this, and he's a nice touch. Sam has the ability to play that real, sort of trashy looking, like he's kind of creepy. You can tell he probably chews on a toothpick. He's just one of those guys, you know what I mean? Has chest hair and a medallion around his neck. He just looks creepy. I mean, he has that look with the mustache. He pulls it out quite nicely here. I thought he was a great addition. Again, like you said, this whole cast is working for sure. So the plot of this is not original. We've seen things like this before, and I'm sure we've seen them since to some degree, where people get mistaken for somebody else. Um, I love this plot. What do you think about this? And folks, let's keep in mind that all these wackadoodle shows we're putting on these streaming services, and look, I'm not soapboxing here, but the wackadoodle murder and death and blood and gore and insane amounts of, simulated sex that we're doing in all these films and whatever we're talking about here. This stuff's getting broadcast out into space as we speak. Like, and if there are species out there who's monitoring us, Phil, if they have the ability to capture these signals, they're seeing this stuff. Like, why would you ever land here? I love, as I said, say this. I love the plot of this. This plot is freaking perfect. That this species doesn't understand this is make believe. I thought it was a great plot, dude. What do you think about the story here of this movie?
Yeah, I love that because I love this idea that um because you have two views of the fans. You have this view of the fans through the convention scenes, and then you have this view of the aliens as fans, and it shows that these properties like Star Trek or these other sci-fi things give people hope, and you never realize like how it touches people. And I really think that that's the message that we get from the alien characters, and what the cast of Galaxy Quest learned throughout the movie is that no, we touch people in such a unique way, and you don't know that until you like actually meet these people and actually talk to them.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And like he gets it. Like Nesmith gets it. He knows. He's kind of a jerk in the film, and he's an alcoholic probably. But like, even she says at one point that, he's I'll have to give him credit, he's about the fans. He gives them what they want. And I mean, at least he appears to have some kind of heart. But yeah, you're right. It's sort of an exploration of fandom, how it affects the cast of a TV series that has become an iconic thing. I mean, it's good stuff here. I mean, I love this story idea, man. The fact that these aliens show up, they're thinking they're recruiting they're recruiting the captain, but they end up getting the whole cast. Um, and it takes them through the whole movie to tell them the truth. And then when they tell them the truth, Mathazar, like, and even by the end of the film, it comes back around. He thinks it was all a clever ruse anyway. So at the end, it didn't matter. That's good
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, I think it was really good stuff. I think Mastazar being this guy that kind of pulled the band-aid off for them and goes, "This isn't real. Like it's all a lie. It's all a sham." And um, I don't know, just like there's such innocence to Mastazar where he's just like, "No, this is all real. It's great." Um, and him being so like dejected when he found out that it wasn't real momentarily. Um,
Oh
and then
yeah,
and then still, coming back around like, ah, you got one over on me, Commander.
yeah, and man, again, that's very gutting when he realizes that they've been lied to. Realizes the truth. Um, by the way, when he tells him, was it Saris tells him he doesn't understand, explain it to him like he's a child. Dude, is this where we got that from? Because,
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
because I've never heard that in my life until recently in the past year or so. That's become a thing online to say. And I was like, I wonder who come up with that because it comes from somewhere. I wonder if it came from this film. Crazy.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
Um, let's see. Yeah, like again, we were talking about moments that they get to you, that show the heart of this film. When the alien, and I'm trying to remember the character's name here, is killed, and he is next to Alan Rickman, like he is Rickman is his idol as the character. And when he gets killed, Rickman has to say the line he doesn't want to say. And it's like the hammer and all that. And dude, it's so good. It is so good. And like I'm actually kind of glad that they killed the character because I feel like it in parts of this it needed those moments of no, he's not going to get up and walk away from this. This character is now dead. Like that's heavy. And I mean, again, that's Rickman doing his thing, but like those moments kind of came at me from out of nowhere, and I didn't expect them to happen, honestly.
Yeah, I think it was an important lesson for Rickman's character for him to realize that this is this thing that I grew to hate because I feel like I'm above this.
Hmm.
Um, but at the same time, like it meant so much to so many people, and he had lost sight of that because he was just so stuck in that I hate this role. I hate having to say this line over and over again, and all of the pain that he brought from you know disappointment from the Galaxy Quest show into the situation. He forgot that, and I think that death showed him that it's not just about me, and I've been kind of selfish.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, for as much as he could say that he hated Nesmith for certain things, Nesmith never did that, and I thought they made that pretty clear early in the movie. Is that no matter what his faults were, he always treated his fans well. And I think for as much as, Alan Rickman's character, prided himself on being an actor, he didn't do that. And there were several points in the movie where he kind of undercut the fans like, this
Hmm.
is stupid and you're stupid for wanting to be here.
Yeah. And then later on, he gets into a massive franchise with Harry Potter. So, isn't that funny? So, like, he got to experience it firsthand. Did Rickman do the convention circuit? Because I don't know the answer to that.
I'm pretty sure he has in some way.
Hmm. Yeah. He got he got a full I'm rewatching it back and he's like he asked him out and he said does the rolling help? He's like it helps and she says where's your gun? It's like he rolls as much as he can through the film. He even rolls in the climax of the movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Him introducing the role is so funny.
Oh,
Um,
so good.
uh, yeah. And I don't know. There's just so many. There's so many heartfelt moments here that work. As a fan of the subject material that they are homaging, and then there's also there's so much stuff that's meta that works, and it just as a movie it just works so well as a narrative. Um, and I feel like the cast learns a lesson. Everybody learns a lesson later.
Mm.
It's almost too perfect that there's like this perfect bow that it wraps on everything. But it's just such an enjoyable movie because of it.
Yeah, no kidding. And the big mission here, kids, is to get the Omega 13, which creates a 13-second time warp to the past. Which there's an Easter egg for you, Phil, that she basically says, "Oh, it's worthless. You can't. 13 seconds isn't enough time to do anything." And you're like, "I'll bet this comes into play later." Sure enough, it does. There's again another bow. I love when they have to go turn the thing off and it stops at one, and she's like, "Oh, of course it stops at one. It always stops at one." Like even the aliens built the thing to stop at one.
Yeah.
Oh, so good, so good. Oh, that's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, again, the big chase in the end of the film, um, when they're trying to get the 13, and then Saris comes up, and he's got the 3D projection, and it's such a great moment. I mean, dude, he's killing the cast. Like man, is this movie had about to have a sad ending? What's going on here? But of course, they save the day and pull everything back together. Um, and then, like as a way to wrap it up, they brought the show back, which is cool. The journey Galaxy Quest. The journey continues.
Yeah. It's kind of a cheesy ending, but it's I feel like it's a fun way to wrap up the movie. And just still also let you know that Galaxy Quest meant so much to people that it kind of lived on in the same way that Star Trek kept living on for people.
Mhm. Yeah, good call. Um, so, in the end, and we've discussed this a lot when it comes to things that we review here. Are you surprised there's never been a sequel to this movie? There's never been a TV series. There's never been anything. Does that surprise you?
Um, no, I feel like it works as a one-off thing. I think it understands what it is, and I think to continue to try and make this into a franchise kind of misses the point of what it is.
Hmm.
I think it would be nice to get sequels, but I in some ways I don't think that it I don't think it fits what the movie is trying to represent.
Yeah, it does feel. Yeah, you're right. It does feel like a one-off. I mean, there had been things being teased. Supposedly Simon Pegg at one point they said that it was in his hands. He was going to do something with. I would love to see a Simon Pegg reboot of Galaxy Quest. I think that'd be phenomenal. Uh, just imagine that cast doing. Oh my God! Now I want to see that movie because they could. I mean, it doesn't have to be an exact replica or exact reboot, but just do something similar. I mean, I'd pay money to see that. I love those guys. We should shout out David Howard, who wrote the script, got the idea for this. It was originally titled Captain Starshine. He got the idea while he was at an IMAX presentation where one of the trailers for an upcoming Americans in Space film was narrated by Leonard Nimoy, also known as Dr. Spock, of course. The trailer got Howard thinking about how the other Star Trek actors had been pigeonholed in these roles since the cancellation of Star Trek, and then he came up with the idea of what if there were real aliens involved. From there, he considered the rest of the script that in a lot of ways just wrote itself because it just seemed to be so self-evident once the ideas were there. Good ideas, Phil, start from you know, just a very minor thought in passing, and it becomes something fleshed out and becomes something pretty big. Um, Where do you think this movie stands with fans? Like, have you been able to gauge that over the years? I mean, we like it, but like, do you know? Do you have friends that like it? Have you heard conversations about it? Have you looked it up online? I'm just curious what's the consensus here? Because consensus seems to be pretty good on this film.
No, I think that it's a cult classic, and I think it's a cult classic because it speaks to, you know, just life as a fan and just like so many things. Um, and again, I think even if you're not a Star Trek fan, you can understand, you know, what the movie is trying to draw tribute to, and I think that's why it's lasted so long with people. And I think that's why I think it's definitely a cult classic.
Mhm. Um, DreamWorks, the studio that produced this, actually wanted Harold Ramis and hired Harold Ramis as director. Ramis wanted Alec Baldwin. Baldwin turned it down. Steve Martin and Kevin Kline were also considered, but both had to turn it down. Ramis did not agree with Tim Allen in the project, so he left. But since the film had come out, Ramis came out publicly and said he loved Tim Allen in the role. He was a fan of the film, so all's well that ends well. So, um, yeah, it's interesting how things turn out. Sigourney Weaver previously worked with Ramis at Ghostbusters, said that he also wanted actors who had not appeared in science fiction roles before, a choice she thought odd since veterans of the genre would know that was humorous. What was humorous? And after seeing the film, Ramis said he was ultimately very impressed with Allen's performance. So there you go. Um, let's see. Alan Rickman was selected. I don't know if he even had to audition. Goodness knows he probably did because he's great. See, I love comedy more than almost anything. This really is one of the funniest scripts I've ever read, which is very cool to see. Um, Tim Allen supposedly based his performance on Yul Brynner from the Ten Commandments and not so much on William Shatner as Captain Kirk from Star Trek. Do you believe that, Phil?
I can believe he took some nods from there, but he's clearly riffing off of Shatner.
Mm-hmm. Tony Shalhoub originally auditioned for Guy Fleegman until Rockwell got the part, so Shalhoub was cast as Fred Kwan. Good stuff.
Yeah.
As we said, Justin Long and Rainn Wilson's first film, respectively. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I feel like this was definitely a cult classic. Something else to note here: actors cast as Thermians had to go to alien school to learn how to move and talk, since they were basically giant calamari hiding in human shape. The walk was inspired by how the marionettes were articulated in the series Fireball XL5. The
Hmm.
more you know. So, yeah, I kind of would like to see this continue. I don't know how you do without Rickman at this point. It does seem as though that you know the bad guy Cyrus, his race would want revenge at some point for what happened, and time passes by at different paces. So why would they show up? 20 some odd years after the fact? Well, because time doesn't flow the way it does. You know what I mean? Like it would kind of make sense that they would show up wanting revenge, but I don't know, dude. I don't know if we go back down this road or not. I think I'd be okay with this if it were just a standalone film as well. Um, it seems like this thing has done its part to inspire other things because there is, what's the thing that Seth MacFarlane has where it's basically the same thing? What is it, the Orville? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I mean, how close I've never watched the show. How close is that to Galaxy Quest?
Oh, I've never watched it, so I'm not sure.
Because it sure looks like it's directly inspired by it. Let's see. No, this is actually actual characters in space. It's about an officer in Planetary Union's line of exploratory space vessels in the 25th century. Well, that's boring. I mean, Star Trek really started the whole thing, man. This idea of it's a Navy or it's an Air Force. Everyone has military style uniforms. Everyone has a different job. It's a ship, meaning it's a ship that's on water, which means everyone has roles, everyone has a job to do to keep the ship afloat, to proceed with the mission. All that came from Star Trek itself, the original series. So, yeah, I'd like to see this come back in some form or fashion, but I don't know if it ever will. Kind of be cool to see. Does this movie get its flowers, you think? Do people talk about this film enough? It's been since '99.
I think it gets its flowers among fans, and I think that's what makes it special. I don't think it's going to be one of those movies that's, celebrated among, elites in Hollywood. It's not going to be one of those things that's like
Hmm.
on like these top 100 lists, but I think it's such a love letter to Star Trek and its fans and its cast that it gets the flowers among the circles that it's supposed to.
It's very much popcorn film, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, good comedy. I love a good comedy, dude. Honestly, with the exception of the MCU, I take good comedy over anything else any day of the week. I love good comedies, so totally fine with that. Um, what? All right. So, favorite scene. Do you have a favorite scene of this film?
Um, I think that there are so many. I don't know. I think there are so many scenes that are funny moments to me that I think about all the time and laugh at. Um, but I think just for as a movie, I think it's such a perfect ending of Nesmith's character coming out of this and actually really saving the world, and all the way to him using the role to beat Service and then having his moment in front of the fans, and he's soaking it in and then turns around and realizes like, no, we did this together. And um just having this moment of understanding that the entire cast made Galaxy Quest what it was, not just him.
Hmm.
And even him learning that, and the cast learning to accept him, I think it's just such a good ending. It couldn't have been any more perfect, and you could be seen as cheesy, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's got kind of I mentioned Nesmith as matching last name of the Monkees earlier. It's kind of the same thing where like the Monkees weren't really a band, and then by the end they were a band. Like they became a band. Like they were just it was all smoke and mirrors for the most part. So like this cast is not really you know like the crew of a spaceship, but by the end of the film they really are like they've saved the day. They've saved the universe, I guess, or whatever. I mean, I like the way everything's tied up. I like happy endings, Phil. I think we've established
Yeah,
that. I don't like movies with bad endings, man. So got to have a good ending because if not, I'm not in it. I'm not in it. So, well, there you have it, kids. There's your Galaxy Quest, and again, it's been a long time since I've seen this film, but it's a good flick. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. If you haven't seen it in a while, by all means, go watch it again because I think it holds up. Does it hold up for you? Did you? So you know the time we're living in, Phil. Did you bump into anything weird here? It seems like there was something that happened, and now I can't remember what it was. Seems like it was a line because I remember when I heard it, I thought, "Oh, that didn't age well." But now, for life, me, I can't remember what it was. Does this movie do okay for you now during this time, like watching it now?
yeah, I think it's aged really well. I think that a lot of the humor in it is still there. I think a lot of the cheesiness and the fun moments still hold up. I still enjoy it a lot. It doesn't even seem like it's that old. I mean, this movie. I mean, this is '99, but it still seems like a very relevant movie.
Yeah, yeah, it works. It works. Um, yeah, I was trying to think. God, I wish I could remember now the line that. And again, I didn't bump into it, but when I heard it, I kind of thought, well, this doesn't age too awful well. And now I can't think of it. I think it may have been the bathroom scene early in the film when he finally hears what people are thinking about him um, and everything, which was a turning point for the character for sure. Um, yeah, I don't know. Gosh, that's going to drive me crazy till I think of it. Oh, I see. That's right. There is one line, and he uses the word retard, which it is what it is. I think that's the only thing I bumped into. There's one other bit of thing that I noticed here. I don't know if you noticed or not. At the end, when they're the Omega 13 and they come around the corner and Justin Long's coaching them through it, right? And he tells them about the chompers and they see them up close and she says, well, screw that. She doesn't say screw that. She says F that. And because when it happened, I thought her mouth did not say the word screw. So I went back and watched again, and sure enough, she said the F word, but they took it out, and it's Sigourney Weaver's voice. So I doubt the people at Starz did this, but I wonder why the choice was made, I guess, to keep the PG-13 rating, I suppose. I don't know. Because I don't think you can say the F word in a PG-13 film, can you?
I don't think you can. Well, I mean, a lot of that has changed now. You can curse on TV now. So.
Yeah, it's true. Say whatever you want. That doesn't matter. Yeah. But this movie's good, kids. I mean, even up to the plan to get Saris at the end, which was freaking great. What you fail to realize is my ship is dragging mines. I love that bit. What a great thing to end on. He's like, oh no! He's trying to get away, and of course it takes them all down. That was very, very cool. A lot of feel-good moments in this movie, kids. You don't have to be a Trekkie to watch it or a science fiction fan per se. It helps, but it's not necessarily required. I think you guys would like it either way. Well, Phil, let's take it home, my friend. Give me your last word on Galaxy Quest.
I think it is a great movie. It's very gratifying if you're a fan of Star Trek or genre stuff like it. I just can't say enough about how well it works as a tribute to fans and Star Trek properties. But I also think it's just a fun movie, man. I think you don't have to understand any of that to just realize it was a fun movie.
Yeah, for sure. As we said, it's a popcorn film, kids. It's very funny. It's entertaining. It's heartwarming in some spots. It's fun to watch. It's a good flick. Yeah, definitely check it out. We'll see if there's anything coming down the road for Galaxy Quest. We know that there's no such thing as original ideas in Hollywood anymore. Those things don't exist. Somebody's going to go back to the well of Galaxy Quest at some point. I would put money on it. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, that is Galaxy Quest.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.